Hello, everybody. This is Zach at it again. I'm your host, Zach Cooley, and I am privileged today to be on the phone with Miss Carolyn Davis. Carolyn, thank you so much for doing the podcast for me today.
Glad to be with you.
Now, you were telling me that you are the retired choral director for Grayson County High School. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Well, it's very nice to have you with us because we're going to talk about something very important today. You and I have seen certainly the most riveting musical I have ever seen in my lifetime, and one of the most riveting shows that I've ever seen in my lifetime. I will never ever forget it, and that is when I saw Tina Turner, the Tina Turner musical at the beautiful Tanger Center in Greensboro, North Carolina on Easter Sunday. Now, did you see it in Greensboro as well?
I did see it in Greensboro. I saw it last Saturday.
Oh, you saw it the day before I did. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm so glad to have found someone who has seen this and knows how great that it was. If you'll pardon me for, at the risk of sounding a little over dramatic, I promise I don't mean it that way at all. It was for lifelong Tina Turner fans. This show was somewhat of a religious experience for diehard Tina fans. And I say that because at 12 years old, Tina Turner was my first concert in 1997. And that made an impression on me that I have never forgotten. And for my wife, I turned her on to Tina Turner. And she has gone through a great deal of trauma in her own life. And Tina's journey, her spiritual journey, where she learned Buddhist chants and things like that. My wife has learned those same prayers, and that has really helped her through her trauma. So it was very emotional, especially for my wife, to witness on stage her going through that trauma, but finding her peace through those chants and things. And but let me ask you, when did you get into Tina Turner, and I guess what prompted you to see the musical in Greensboro?
Well, a couple of things. I remember when first seeing Tina on the Tina Night Show doing Proud Mary back in the 60s.
Oh, yes.
And I just was mesmerized about how on fire she was and how much enthusiasm she had for that. And then about 10 or 11 years ago, I directed the musical Beehive the Musical, which is 60s hits, and Proud Mary and one other song that Tina sang were in the show. And the young lady that played that passed away in this past January. So it really, it reminded me of my Denise. And I was so grateful that I'd had that experience with her.
So then you kind of understand what I'm saying when I say that it was a religious experience. Maybe the better term is spiritual experience, because it sounds like you had somewhat of a spiritual experience in being connected to the student that you...
Right, exactly. And I what I've said to several this week is that the music was terrific, but the story is so sad, especially in the first act.
Yes.
I was so glad that they did concentrate on the relationship she had with her second husband. That was so much more hopeful. But that it just, it's amazing what some people have to live through. But then Tina found the strength to go on, even in the bad stuff. She just kept going.
And I could not agree with you more, because if you watch the movie What's Love Got to Do with It from 1993 about her life, it is so brutal.
Right.
And I mean, it doesn't hold a candle to what she went through, because I've read all 3 of her books that she's written. And it doesn't hold a candle to what she went through. But it's so brutal to watch. And the play has scenes that are difficult to watch, and I understand why they are important, but it's not brutal enough that it distracts you from the story. What's Love Got to Do with It was so brutal that you couldn't get past those bloody scenes. And
right, it was pretty much all negative.
Yes, it was all about, for lack of a better phrase, Ike beating the crap out of her.
Right.
And when she would be interviewed 20, 30 years later of all the wonderful things she'd accomplished in her career, the first thing they want to do is ask her about Ike.
Yep.
And when you have PTSD, that puts you right back there, and you start reliving those moments as if they're just happening. And she went through that again and again and again, and she had to fight that off with grace. And she wrote those books so she wouldn't have to talk about it anymore, and it made it worse.
And they just keep asking. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and I'm a journalist, and it would be a dream come true for me to talk to Tina Turner. And if I got to Tina Turner, the last thing I would want to know about is that lump of nothing that she was married to for 20 years. You know.
There's already been enough said about that.
Yeah, what else can you say? And I'm so glad that you mentioned Erwin Bach, because I was so relieved that the second half was about her journey. Right. And what she did. People thought, when you see her up on stage doing Proud Mary, you think, oh, that woman's got it all. She's got money, she's got clothes. She had nothing. She had nothing. Everything was his. He owned her. She was his. She was his property. When she decided to leave him, she had to go on food stamps to buy dishes. And she was out there singing the songs that she knew, and he was trying to sue her for copyright.
And she had to escape. She had to
literally escape, running across a 6-lane freeway in Dallas, Texas. If Ike didn't kill her, that would have. And she made it across that freeway. And at the end of the first act, when she holds up that key, she's talking to an invisible man who is the hotel manager. We don't see him. She's just talking to the stage, but we know that's who she's talking to. And then when she holds that key up in her hand, that's when the tears start flowing. Because that key was her freedom. You knew once she got that key in her hand, she was never going back.
At last, yeah.
And that's when the tears start flowing for me. I know my wife started bawling at that point. But it was, when you go through emotional trauma, mental trauma, physical trauma, as my wife has, and there's this book called Happiness Becomes You that Tina wrote about a year before she died. And my wife was very depressed, and I picked that book up and started reading it to her. And she started doing some of the chants that Tina has done. It changed her life. It turned her life around. It was a celebration not only of Tina Turner's triumphs, but of my wife's triumph. And I'm sure when you saw the show that you were thinking of Denise as well.
Yes.
and the wonderful person that she was. I didn't know her personally, but I knew of her, and I knew what a talented lady she was.
Yes, she had had cancer for 3 years and had fought so hard, but she didn't ever complain like Tina. She just kept on fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And I know seeing the musical, it can encourage people because they can see, wow, she had it awful, and she found a way to get out. She found a way to make it better.
And not only to get out, but look at what she became. She became the queen of rock and roll.
She did. She sure did, and she showed Ike that she didn't need him.
Right. And she was so controlled by fear.
Right.
And because that's how he controlled everybody, not just her. But he saw a meal ticket in her.
It really bothered me when it showed him trying to play her mother, trying to make the mother think, oh, I'm such a wonderful person, Tina needs to come back with me. And I'm like, wow, what a liar.
And I'm so glad you said that, because in my opinion, her mother was the bigger villain than he was, because she did not want her. And that scene where she said, you have no idea how much I really truly do love you, that never happened. She never got that validation from her mother. And it is true that, at her funeral, they discussed her beloved son-in-law, Ike Turner. And the reason being is that Ike Turner bought her a house, bought her a car, kept her in money.
He played her.
Yeah.
He played her.
And she totally bought into that. She
was whatever she could get.
And she was very happy being Tina Turner's mother, because she was very happy to take all of her money and brag that she was Tina Turner's mother, but still didn't love her daughter. And that was just tragic.
Yes, so sad. And unfortunately, as a teacher, I see that in several of my students' lives, and it's just heartbreaking.
Yes, and it is very real, and it goes to show that because you are world famous, it doesn't make you above those kinds of things. And there was one other thing I wanted to note. I'm glad you mentioned that the second half was about Erwin Bach, because she did spend the last 37 years of her life very happy with this man.
Yes.
And much longer with him than she did with Ike, but few people even know about Erwin.
Right.
And, and also they had it wrong that squeezing it in for time constraints, but
right.
But Tina Turner's mother did not die during the What's Love Got to Do With It era. She died when Tina was 60 years old, when she was on her way out of retirement. And even then, Ike was still in her life from afar, because he owned the house that her mother lived in, and he went to the funeral and cried like a baby, and it was just the ultimate slap in the face to Tina.
Yes.
And what the musical doesn't cover is that Tina's oldest son, Craig, committed suicide with a gun that belonged to Tina's mother. And I think when her sons died before she did, I think that was basically the end of her.
Yeah, I had looked up about her sons after I saw the show, and oh my goodness, the trauma that continues.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to. Not everybody can get over it. Tina found a way to get out of it, but not everybody does.
Right, and I think there's no worse pain for a parent than if a child dies before you. And I think that was just the last straw for Tina. I think she just thought, I'm ready to go and be with I'm ready to go and be with my children.
Uh-huh.
Or, continue, or whatever it is that she believed. But one thing that I know that she did believe is that that people's energy continues, and this woman, Ari Groover, may not have looked or sounded like Tina Turner necessarily, but Tina Turner's energy was in this woman.
Yes, she shared it mightily.
I mean, the moves were spot on. From the Ike and Tina Turner days all the way to the solo days.
Yes, and she did an exceptional job.
Yeah, and that band, that horn section, that horn section was slick. Now, I'm a sucker for a good horn section, but they were on top of it. And that, I got to see Tina Turner live, but when they did that 50s section with her doing Shake a Tail Feather and all those, man, that must have been something to see. Now, when you talk about seeing Tina Turner live, or seeing Tina Turner do Proud Mary, did you see that live or did you see that on TV?
It was on TV.
Okay. You never had a chance to see her live.
Didn't see her live. I was really too young then, but my older sister is 6 years older, and she was like, "We need to watch this." So, and I just, every time I would hear Proud Mary after that, and I was so glad it was in the show that I directed, and my girls just had a blast doing the best they could, recreating the dance.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And my wife we were in the orchestra pit, and my wife was doing the whole Proud Mary thing, and Ari Groover pointed to my wife, and she felt like Tina Turner was pointing to her.
Oh, sweet.
And it was such a very full circle moment. And again, I could not agree more that I'm so glad that they focused on her rising up to her solo career, because that stuff is just as interesting to me, if not more, than the things about Ike. But also the moment when she fought Ike back.
Right.
When she finally fought back. I mean, cheers came from the audience when that happened.
Amen. Yeah.
And not many people did, but I applauded when she was standing up to her mother in the hospital.
Mm-hmm. She finally had the strength to stand up to her mama.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really hard thing to do, because no matter what you think, you always want to think your mama really loves you.
Yes. And it's the most tragic thing in the world when a mother doesn't.
No, right.
Because it's the most unnatural, detachment that there is. And I'm sorry, I have done all the talking just because I'm so excited about this musical.
That's okay.
But please share with me your thoughts.
Well, as I said earlier, her music is just unforgettable. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that they had the enthusiasm and the dances and the voices to really make it come alive. Like I said earlier, the first half was such a sad story, but I am so glad that they showed the big change, that she was able to rise above that. And I hope that it will encourage anyone that was in that audience that they can, if they're in a bad situation, that there is a way to get out.
Yeah.
So,
and it doesn't matter where you come from. Everybody can say those words, can do those prayers that she did. And if that doesn't work for you, you can turn to whatever you need to turn to. But there's always a way out. And something that was very moving to me, I think the whole center of the play, in the opening scene, they have the intro to Simply the Best playing. And then on top of that, you have her doing her Buddhist chants. And then to one side, you have the Baptist preacher preaching. And then you have her grandmother doing the Native American chants that were in her family. And I just thought that was so moving that she took pieces of all three of those things and made that the center of her faith. And all of that was what sustained her. It wasn't just the Buddhist chants. It wasn't just the Native American heritage. It wasn't just the Christian verses. It was all of it that was a part of her. And I just thought that was amazing.
She found hope, from several very key people in her life.
Yeah. Certain things she had to shut out about parts of her life, but she took pieces from everything, took the best pieces of everything and molded that into what made her life. And, who couldn't learn or be inspired by that,
Bruce, that is.
Even if you don't know her story, to see the energy that she possesses on stage. And let me tell you, the energy that little girl put out on stage was every bit what you would see in a Tina Turner concert. I know, I was there, and it is just as moving. A couple other things I want to ask you about. I thought the little girl who played young Anna Mae was.
I was just going to say that she was amazing, and I really appreciated that they gave her some big moments.
Yes, and brought her back out at the finale. Because, man, she was on fire.
She was. I thought, boy, she will never forget that.
Yeah.
And I know I went with my sister and my niece, and my sister had a friend see the show a couple days before, and she said, make sure you stay after the curtain call.
Yeah.
And then our usher also said, make sure you stay after the curtain call. So I thought that was great that they did that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I thought the guy who played Raymond Hill, who was the father of her first child, was very good. He sang Let's Stay Together in that real smooth Al Green style.
Yes. I've always loved that song. I did go back, my sister and I did go back and look and saw that Let's Stay Together was later in her recording history than where they put it in the story.
Yes, it was on the Private Dancer album.
Yeah, so we were a little confused by that. We're like, we think it was a little later than that, and it was.
Yeah. The songs were definitely out of order. They fit them in. They fit them in to where they would go subject-wise.
Yeah,
yes,
the story.
Which I thought was brilliantly done. Brilliantly done.
Yeah, they did do a wonderful job. And I always love it. I don't always do this, but I love seeing a show, a musical that's based on fact, and then going back and seeing how it lines up in truth. That lets me know that it really caught me, because I really wanted to see, okay, let's see where all this fit.
Exactly. I love to do the same thing. I guess as a writer for the newspaper, research is my thing, and one of my favorite subjects is Tina Turner, so there you are. Yeah, so, I mean, I agree with you 100%. Absolutely loved it. The costumes, too, were just fantastic.
Yes, they were on point. They were. you could tell they had done a lot of research and a lot of study to make sure it was right.
Well, Tina Turner gave her blessing with the project a few years before she died, and you could tell that her hand was in all of it. You know, that she was as big of a fashion icon as she was a music icon. You know, the hair and the clothes so, I mean, it was spot on, and I just enjoyed every minute of it. Sounds like you and I hit the same, you and I picked out the same things that we liked.
Well, I did want to tell you, I did research about, something was said about that she wore her short dresses because she wanted to be sexy. And she said, no, I wanted to see my legs.
Yeah.
I thought that is great.
Right. When she said, I wore them so I give my legs room to move.
Yeah.
You know, so they wouldn't be tight in them. Because, but never took a singing lesson, never took a dancing lesson. But people take dance lessons for years to learn how to dance like Tina Turner. And Ari Groover maybe didn't sound like Tina Turner, but she had that rough edge to her voice that most Broadway singers don't have. And I think that gave her the edge to play Tina Turner that most people wouldn't have,
Yes, she did an excellent job.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about that I have not let you cover?
I think we covered about everything. I did read the review you wrote, and you did an excellent job on that.
Oh, bless you. It's something I'm going to remember the rest of my life. And
it was really excellent, and I'm sorry it's already moved on, but maybe it'll come back around.
Me too, but I'm telling you what, it was in Charlotte a couple years ago, and I missed it in Charlotte. I'm so glad it came to Greensboro. Isn't that a beautiful venue? It's a brand new.
That's what I was just going to say. I've seen about 8 shows there now, I guess, that it is very, very good. So much newer than the Broadway theaters.
Yes, I mean, it's a beautiful venue, brand new, and I've never been in the orchestra pit before. Usually, when you have wheelchair seating, it was they usually put you in the middle or in the back. But I was in the orchestra pit, and man, we had a ball. That was amazing.
Yes, yes. Well, I appreciate you calling, and success on your podcast.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your kind words about my review. That means a lot to me. Well, it was wonderful talking to you, Carolyn.
Well, you are very welcome, and I hope you have a blessed rest of the day.
Thank you. You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.